Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Hey Sister. Hey Sister, how you doing?
Girl, I'm doing fine, but I'm reading these court documents.
Ah, well, look, we gonna get into that a little bit later into the episode because we don't want to start off right with that. But we are so excited to have one of our homeboys with us tonight, Mr.
Yes.
Alwynn VanBuren. Hey, Alwyn, how you doing?
Whoop, whoop.
I'm great. I'm great. How you guys doing?
We are doing
Doing good.
fantastic. We are super excited to be here. One of our super fans, Jody's tuning in. Say hey, Jody.
Hey,
Hey,
Jody.
Miss
Hey,
Jody.
Jody.
Hmm
And in typical Hey Sister fashion, we ask that you like, follow, share, subscribe, pass this show on to somebody else because this is a
hmm
very important topic that we're going to talk about tonight. Always starting off with little foolishness and the hot topics. And also join the conversation in the comments. That's where all the action goes down in the comments. And we would love to have your comments about this episode because we know that there's definitely going to be some comments. But in typical Hey Sister fashion, we got to start off with a couple of hot topics. So the first hot topic this evening, earlier today, we heard the news that Miss Rosalind Carter, the wife of our former president Jimmy Carter, the first president in my memory, because I think I was about um I
Before Clinton,
was
no?
yeah, it was 7 years old when he went out of office. So I think when he came into office, I probably was like, 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old. Because I think he was came into office in 1976 is when he took the helm or when he won the election. So um and there's not a day that he would not mention or talk about his wife. And so she was a very key and integral part of his life. I don't know if you all have any thoughts, memories, certainly for the Carter family. We know that recently she was diagnosed and suffering with dementia. We know that the toll that dementia takes on families, but she did live to be 96. Sister, what are your thoughts or what do you have to say?
My only thoughts, of course, are condolences to the Carter family. They were married for 77 years. That in and of itself,
77.
yeah,
Woo!
that in and of itself deserves a
hmm
round of applause. So, you know, uh, I feel like Jimmy Carter as a president is one that did not become as appreciated as he should have been while he was actually president. And it was years later. And I think the same with him and Rosalind Carter. They just it was a different time. We don't always hold our political officials in high esteem, sometimes for good reason, but they both have been humanitarians and definitely have been good examples, like I said, of what love, marriage, fidelity, all of those things. So rest in peace to former First Lady Carter.
Yes, rest in peace to her. Um, and I know this is gonna be a hard pivot, but it's gonna be a pivot nonetheless. Cause
What you
last,
didn't want to ask if if our guest had any thoughts.
do you have any thoughts on Mrs. Carter?
No, just condolences. You're 96 years old. My grandmother died at 96, so she lived a long time. So,
Yeah, it's a beautiful life. Every day we get up is a beautiful life. How about that?
hmm
But last week we were talking about we spent some time talking about Kiki Palmer and Mr. Darius Jackson drama. And oh, Sharon. We talked a little bit about Kiki's mama, but now one of the questions you had, sister, last week, you were like, "Well, I don't know how this situation got to be like this, and the mama or somebody, it was no intervention." Well, as soon as we got off the call, we heard the tapes. We heard a little recording of Mama Sharon. Oh, Sharon. Mm-mm-mm-mm. What say you, sister? Tell us about Mama Sharon.
Well, I still say I still ain't heard about her, from her dad. which
Mm.
is very interesting to me. Anytime there's these sort of situations, right? So still haven't necessarily heard from her dad. What my issue was they were obviously having a private conversation. I want to understand who keeps recording these private calls and making them available to the press.
It was from the cameras inside her house. She had it turned on.
The phone call, because I heard Mama real clear, and so
I don't know if that was a phone call or if that was when he came to the house and she called her
no,
mom.
she was on. Well, even if she called her mom, like her mom, I mean, obvious, maybe she had her on speakerphone, and that's why. But I mean, maybe I don't know what kind of cameras they invested in. Maybe it's a different kind.
Maybe our guests can tell us about the type of camera we need and the type of security and
I don't know that I even want that level of audio because I'm like, first of all, Sharon, why Usher had to catch all them strays? That's all I want to understand. Why did Usher have to catch all the strays? That
why did his
whatever
name have to even be brought up in the conversation?
conversation. Like, well, the reason his name was brought up in this conversation was apparently because Mr. Darius Jackson, after the situation, I guess after the concert, he must have texted her a picture of Usher and trying to make some insinuations. So that's why her mother felt the need to get him together. But in getting him together, you like really threw this man under the bus, and he just over there in Vegas trying to finish his residency. So
That's all. That's all. All I'm gonna say is, to Mama Sharon, to everybody that's involved in the situation, let's try to elevate to our higher selves, allow empathy to rule. But one of the things that we're gonna talk about tonight is life is a word problem. And the Cassie and Diddy situation is a prime example of that. So I don't remember. I think it was in geometry when we had to do because all the did you have Miss Toops as well in the geometry? Who taught you geometry, Alwyn?
Oh,
Was it Debbie Toops?
no.
I was at West Tilwood. I had geometry at West Tilwood Junior High.
Yeah, what's the little lady named? She was a started with a G. Go not Go Bear.
But did y'all have to do those if then postulates?
Well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
If
Mhm.
this, then this, right? So what happened in the Cassie Diddy situation? Because the lawsuit dropped, the documents dropped. We gonna drop a link to the documents in the comments so y'all can read it for yourself. But it clearly was a if then kind of situation that happened. And so, what do you think was the if on that side of the equation?
If you don't
Uh-oh.
pay up,
If he don't pay up, then
I'm gonna release everything, all the information.
Jordan said, "Stop asking me to solve for X."
It was definitely it definitely feels like more than life being a word problem. There was some uh we're gonna talk about probabilities, um, the chances of you having to pay more money if you go to court.
Mhm,
What
Mm-hmm.
what does that financial obligation look like versus if you settle? Does settling, for some people, settling is an admission of guilt.
mhm,
For others, they'll say no, it's just a
It's not.
matter of financials, doing the running the numbers, doing the
Mm-hmm.
math. Does it make sense for me to settle and get this done, or does it make sense for me to go to court and let it play out? I mean, I think though a lot of the information in the court documents it's very damning. There are some people who feel like, hey, if I was not guilty of these accusations, I would go to court. But again, none of us, though, people who are saying that probably are not multimillionaires.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that you have to factor and take into consideration. I do think though the documents are pretty damning though. Eh, it's a
For
lot.
sure.
It's a lot.
You know, before she even filed the case, I think she was supposed to write a book or something. I think there was kind of, I think that's what the lawyer was saying. They were kind of threatening him that, she gonna write this book, a tell-all book. So, they kind of saw it as blackmail. But my thing, if it was blackmail, then you didn't have to settle, right? But again, he's a billionaire, so he was like, let me pay this 32 million, whatever she want, instead of me have to pay, you know, 100 million for lawyers.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
All a calculation.
and we
Hmm.
mentioned Usher earlier. We do know, and we talked about this when we talked about the Jeezy last week as well. We do know, and it has been documented and has been spoken publicly, um, that um when Usher went under Diddy's care or was there when he was producing him, how he introduced him to these women. We at a young age, and introduced him to sex with women when he was a teenager. And so, as you read some of the things in the documents, based on even other allegations that you've heard out, word on the street, none of it was surprising in any way, at least to me. Um, but still very disturbing. And I think that we're going to talk about a little more how we say, well, people say you don't use math every day in life. Well, there's calculations being made every day, and
Hmm.
this was a calculated move on her part. and
Hmm.
and she got the justice that she, and the recompense, as they would say, that she was seeking, be because of it. And it was a calculation on his part as well, because I'm sure that in those documents, they were like, we don't want no more but what's in this court brief to be out in the public sphere. So that was calculation on that
Hmm.
part, like, what do we want to be out in the real world or not? So I don't know, that's my thoughts. But
I wouldn't be
child,
surprised if he paid 100 million instead of 30 something million. I'm pretty sure he probably gave her more than what she wanted and said, you know what,
be
And I'm
done.
let's
sure
move
there are
on.
some new non-disclosure agreements that
Hmm.
were put into place as a result.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, if for them to settle in 24 hours, when they came out, he had his lawyers working overtime with paperwork.
Everybody got paid that day.
Hmm.
Billable hours was good. We could eat off of that for a minute.
Hmm.
Yes, indeed.
For sure, for sure. Well, you are tuned in live with Hey Sister. We are talking with our homeboy. Some of our friends affectionately call you the hood mathematician, right?
Yes. Yes.
So we talk about from being from the hood all the way to
Hmm.
NASA, and then he was telling us about some of the work that you're
Hmm.
doing now. And so, I don't know, in people's thoughts, minds, eye, did they see you as an engineer? But we would love for you to tell us a little bit about your story. What do you do professionally, as well as how did you get there from being that little boy in Thibodeau who grew up in the hood?
So, um, in all honesty, I was a undergraduate at Thibodeau High. Went off to Southern. You know, I do have to give some props to Froggy. We all know Kimry.
Okay, we not gonna call him Froggy on the thing. Call that boy
Kim,
name, okay?
Kimry Avery, and Kimry, the one that he came by my house to June of huh? That's all. Okay.
Tell him you
He came.
live on Hey Sister. Hey, he live on Hey Sister. Go tune in on the YouTube. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. He came to my house June of 1992 and said, "Oh, you know what? Um, I'm gonna take you and enroll at Southern." And from that point on, I enrolled in Southern and graduated in electrical engineer. Started out at NASA in 1997 and stayed there. Worked on the space shuttle program up until 2011. Space shuttle program ended. Went into oil and gas for the next from 2011 to 2000 to 2020, and then I came back to NASA in February 2020, right before COVID.
Okay. And tell us what you're doing now at NASA because we talked a little about it in the pre-show, but tell us exactly what you're working on now cuz of course I had to look up the LinkedIn and I'm like, I see all the things, but I don't understand none of it.
Yes, so NASA is going back to moon, and then from the moon they're going to Mars. So we're building something similar to the ISS that we have now. Eventually, the ISS is going to be um, let go. It's going to come back in the atmosphere, burn up around about 2030, and then um, we're going to be building a similar station that's called Gateway. So they're going to be an area where we able to astronauts are able to go there and then leave from Gateway, go on to Moon, and then on to Mars. So what I'm doing now, we're building a lab. It's called GRIL, which is GRAIL, which stands for Gateway Ready Avionics Integrated Laboratory. So we're gonna have all the components of Gateway, which is the IHAB, which is the International Habitat, PPE, which is the propulsion power element, and then other areas too. Halo, which is the habitat logistic modules. We're going to be working with the European. We're going to have logistic modules, ONWARM. So it's going to be similar to ISS, but on a much larger scale.
And
And
ISS stands for International Space Station,
space
so
station.
just want to
Yeah.
say that. And so you
So
say International Space Station gonna re-enter our atmosphere in about 7 years and gonna crash and burn into our atmosphere?
yeah, we're gonna burn it. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Didn't know that. You knew that, sister? I
I
ain't knew
don't
that.
know that I knew that, but I will say every time I talk, Alwyn is so humble. So I'm going to take a step back because I don't feel like the shout out to Southern University was hard enough and strong enough. So shout out to Southern University College of Engineering once again.
But hold
But
on, let's pause also there because I know that there are several others, and whether they watch this live or watch this in the replay, because I know there's another one who just hopped in a car with y'all. We gotta shout out our boy from back at Kmart, Eugene Fry.
yes,
Mhm.
He probably didn't want me to call his full government name either, but he said he jumped in the car and rolled down with y'all too.
Yep.
And then he decided, well, let me go enroll in school too, because he didn't have a plan. And it's
Yep.
amazing how so many, some of you didn't have that plan coming out of high school, and then you went there, you enrolled. That's the power of the HBCU. You went there, you got enrolled. He was able to say, well, these are my grades and stuff. And they were like, no, baby, we're going to get you into school and you're going to start. And all of y'all started and finished.
And,
Let's
and-
not just say
yep.
not just started, but all of you finished and have gone on to be very successful. And I think that's an amazing testament to friendship and to the HBCU experience. So,
So yeah, so just to add on to that, Kenry actually took it was me, Gene, Corey, and Steven.
hmm
He took all of us down there. Yeah.
yep,
and then
absolutely.
I know I think Gene said Stephen had initially was going to go to Dillard,
He was
but
at Dillard. He
He was
he was
at
transferred.
at
Dillard
Dillard, and then because
because
Gene
he's my classmate, so he was there in '91.
yes, and
Yeah, and
because
he
Gene
transferred.
didn't get into Dillard or something, he told his mama, "Well, I'm going to Southern," and
Yes,
I
and he
love
transferred. Hmm.
and so I the reason that I wanted to emphasize that is number one, you obviously had the grades, you obviously were equipped from a math and science standpoint, and it's like, but sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And so if you didn't have certain people to talk to you and say, come on, let's go on over here and enroll, anything else could have happened. So when I think of you, I always think how, we always say stuff, colloquialisms, and we'll say stuff like, well, it's not rocket science. And I'm
Hmm.
like, but for you, it is rocket science. And I think that's
Yes.
amazing. I think that's
Hmm.
amazing. So
But tell us a little bit more about then, like Chrissy said, you're very humble.
Very.
And
But I call you when I got a math issue.
Yes, yes.
If I can't
uh
carry the one, I'm gonna call you.
and so how did you develop that talent? Because again, all around us, people that look like us were not necessarily supposed to be able to carry the one. So how did you develop that talent?
I think it was a God gifted talent because, my mom would always say, she used to, I used to come home and just do my homework. She used to have to help me. She used to have to tell me. So I come home, do my homework, and just continue to excel. So that's the only way I can describe it. It just was a God-given talent that
Hmm.
I used and was excelling and great at math.
Hmm. And how did you okay, I know God gave it to you. How did you cultivate it? Who helped cultivate that in you? Because a
I
lot of
think it
things,
started.
gifts God give to people, but then if it's not nurtured or cultivated,
Mhm.
right, then it doesn't go anywhere.
I think it started in eighth grade with my teacher at that time. She saw how great I was doing in pre-algebra, and then she asked me, if I wanted to go move up to algebra. And she talked to my mom. They agreed. So in the middle of my eighth grade year, they actually moved me to algebra. So all my teachers, and then especially when I got to Thibodeau High, Mr. Bolello and um, others, they just kept at it and just made sure that I continue to excel. They always challenged me. Especially Mr. Bolello, he always challenged me. So.
Hmm. Shout out to Charlie Balella. We hope you watch this in replay. We'll tag you so you can see your favorite student. I guess three of your favorite students, cause but I didn't get it
I'm
like
gonna
y'all.
guess that his children were probably his favorite students. I'm just gonna
I'm gonna say not, but I'm just gonna leave it.
wow.
I love them, but negative Ghost Rider. Anyway, let's talk then. One of the things that prompted us wanting to have you on here is one of my college classmates. I saw that she posted something where she was helping her younger child. She's a younger child who's an elementary age child learn new math problems. And it re-sparked in our mind this whole thing about new math. Now there were
Mhm.
things that we had to learn. We just had to know. We had that little card. Used to be like a little card about this side from the insurance man that had your
Mhm.
multiplication tables, right? Like we
Mhm.
just had to be able to rote memorization know some things, but there also was some foundational principles and how we learn certain things that we apply all the time. And so this new math and these new methodologies are supposed to make kids think more critically, but I think it's actually hurting kids when it comes to, especially taking standardized tests where there's a accuracy and speed element because it's a time test
Mhm.
situation. Tell us what your thoughts are on the new math, and you got two children who have excelled in that as well. So, what were your thoughts as a parent who is a mathematician when your kids came home with that stuff?
So I always made sure that I taught them my way of learning, along with the school. But we went back and forth. The teacher said, um, you know, we should be learning this way, but I made sure that they learned it my way as I grew up and understood math as well. But I don't too much care for the new way. My kid, they 26, 22 now, so they've been out of public school for quite some time. But I just made sure that they always learn my way
Mhm. So
and the way
tell
I
us
was taught.
about your way. What does that mean?
Just going back to the basics, right now examples, using pen and paper, we wouldn't using flashcards, not trying to dissect, okay, this and that, just going straight to pen and paper.
Mhm.
Well, I think my question would be, especially because you've worked in oil and gas, you've worked at NASA, you're back at NASA
Mhm.
again. So I'm sure you're seeing new people come in, right? With an engineering mathematics background. have we seen the caliber of math acumen? Have we seen math acumen increase? Are we seeing the caliber of new employees who are coming in? Are they more? Are they
I'm
better at
I'm just
critical? Why
laughing at
are
the
you
way he
laughing?
shook his head. Just the way he shook
No,
his head like this.
no, no, I don't think they better. You know, it depends. It still depends on the person and the amount of time and work and effort that you put in to learn.
Hmm.
Uh, so I don't think the new way of math shows that these new generation is going to be more skilled than the old generation. You know, because the old generation will always have much more knowledge and understanding.
And
Mhm.
yeah, I was telling my sister, I think my issue with the quote unquote new math is if I remember when first it was kind of like a joke, and then I realized, and I think it was one of the times that I actually did call you. My
Mhm.
nephew had a problem, and couldn't solve it, and I contacted you, and you explained it, and then I was like, I don't ever remember learning that, and you were like, we learned it this other way, and then I was like, that's
Mhm.
jogging a memory. This new math wasn't. And I think my challenge is if we saw that standardized tests were improving, that critical thinking skills were improving, that they're like as a nation, because we were supposed to be doing this to keep up with China and Japan and other
Mhm.
developed
Mhm.
countries that
Mhm.
were
Mhm.
excelling in mathematics, right? If we saw this exponential growth
Mhm.
in our math scores, or in the number of engineers or number of mathematicians, scientists, or what have you, then I would be like, oh yeah, it makes sense. But I think my challenge is clearly it's not working, and it's only frustrating parents who don't know how to help their kids.
Yes, you know, it would be hard to gauge and get the statistics to see if new math is working now more than it was, than the old math. It'd be too hard to even gauge that statistic to even see.
Right,
It's,
right.
there's no way. It's no way to do it. Just because somebody test scores up, it could be just that they're naturally smart. You know, I scored. I had a 24, 26 on the math part of the ACT. So
So why do you think, and this is a frustrating thing for me. Okay, so again, everybody who watch Hey Sister know I don't have no kids, but one of the things that frustrates me though is I think language is so important. And so often we have parents saying, "Oh, I don't do math," or "I don't know how to do math." And as a result of them saying that they don't know how to do it, then they're not obviously setting up their kids to be able to do it. So how do we compensate for I don't know how to do math when we created math, when we are the original mathematicians and the original scientists? Why do you think we believe that we can't do this? Why do we say that?
because it starts with, you have to be able to teach your kids, right? So if the parents don't understand math or be able to teach their kids, then kids automatically gonna say, okay, I don't know it, I don't understand, it's hard. So the parent have to be able to teach them at a young age, even when they get in, pre-K, kindergarten, have them where they enjoy and love it, whether it's math, science, whatever it is. But that's where it starts at. You got to be able to put that time in. And, that's how I think, both of my kids was able to excel or really not say they dislike math. They was able to go through college, high school with good math grades, go through college with good math grades, because the foundation was instilled in them at a young age.
But then
I
that's what
think
I'm
that's the
saying.
key.
We often excel at sports. And
Hmm.
as we were talking about in the pre-show, sports is math. It's very much geometry. Whether it's football, golf, basketball, tennis, like it's very much geometry, it's very much physics. It's all of these things that It's math. So how is it that we say we can't do math if we can do all those other things?
If you can run a route and you can cut an angle, and basically it's like, okay, you're doing a 45-degree angle or 90-degree angle, or like we said, when you hit the ball off the backboard, it creates increases the probability of the ball going in because it's just about angles, right?
Uh, Yeah, I think a lot of people are afraid of math, so that's why they don't take the time out to learn it. You
Hmm.
Mhm.
know, it's the fear factor.
And you just never had that.
I never had it.
He like, I just ain't never
I
had
just saying I wasn't built that way.
it.
Okay, but so then how can we then because I don't think even so let's just talk about daily life application.
Yes.
Because one of the things that we hear all the time, people say, I'm never gonna use this. I'm never gonna use algebra. Like Jody in her comment, she said, what she said,
Stop asking me to
stop
solve for
asking me
it.
to solve for X. That's life. Every day in life we solving for X, right? Every day in life we doing algebra. So what are some of the basic applications? Like tell us where math is showing up in our life every day.
Your finances.
Hey.
You know, you got to be able to budget. You got to be able to. Oh, if you own a car, right? If you financing the car, the interest. A lot of people these days don't even know what the interest rate is, not knowing that the interest rate plays a big part of how much your car note is per month.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
the
Um,
way they be taking all these pictures and and say hit angles, we literally say we hitting the angles, and yet
45
we don't.
degree angle, right? Hmm.
Right, you know, you trying to get that, but your face, So it's like all of these things have mathematical applications.
And like we talked about earlier in the pre-show, miles per hours, RPMs, if you're
Yes,
driving a
yes.
car,
Miles
I,
per hour is a fraction. It is
it's a
miles
fraction
over hours.
hours.
But why do not? And we were even talking about music. Like we grew up playing instruments. Shout out to Beverly Stafford, rest in peace. Um, in terms of where our foundation, and the first thing you learn is a whole note, and the whole
Mhm.
note is equal to four counts, and then that means a half note is equal to two, because it's half of four. Why? How is it that these kind of things, like, and I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to belittle anybody who doesn't have a strong math foundation. In a very similar way, I came home in 6th grade. I got the note. They said in 7th grade they were going to put me in pre-algebra. And this I just saw it as, oh, this is cool. This is an honor. I get to be in a class ahead of everybody else. And by the time I graduate high school, I'm going to have this extra credit and I'll be in like what have you. I just saw it as an honor, right? But I remember coming home and my parents were like, "Sure, you can do this. We cannot help you." And I was like, "That's cool. Just sign the papers," you know. So I'm not trying to underestimate the challenges that come with doing math. But I'm always just baffled by it because I'm like, we have it in so many aspects of our daily life.
But we grew up. Our mom would always tell us that she couldn't do math. But honey, if we was in the store and it was 25% off or 30% off, she would calculate that in her head so fast and
Right.
be able to tell us, "Oh, that's gonna be this much." Boom, 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 boom. And it was like, "What? How you
Right.
did that, baby? You just was moving the decimal and doing like." I mean, it was like and to this day, she will still tell us she's not good at math. But if you ask her about some money and some change and how much you're supposed to get, she gonna be able to run that like that, right?
Right.
So how I don't know. How do we get people to recognize and or understand that all of those things? I mean, 30% off is just a fraction, it's just moving the decimal point over, boom, boom, boom. That's how I calculate tips in my head. I just move that decimal point over times two, that's 20%. Boom, I'm done. You know, it's this just yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know
Mhm.
how we gonna get there. How we gonna get there? Oh, and how we
Yes,
gonna get
how do
people
we
to?
get our young men and women more interested?
Yes.
Again, I think, you know, camps, I used to take my kids to different science camps, robotic camps. I'm not sure if they're still offering these days, but the parents, I still say, got to fall on the parents. The parents got to get the kids more engaged. So if
Mhm.
the parents get the kids more engaged, then the kids gonna start to love it more. We get them engaged in football, we get them engaged in basketball, we get them engaged in soccer and baseball and everything else. So you know, I always make sure that yes, they play basketball. Yes, they play baseball, but also I had them in science camps as well.
Mhm.
But somebody might say, well, you were in a different financial situation.
Mhm.
So what about people like little Alwyn who may not have had the same been in the same place financially? What about little Alwyns out there? How do they get involved? How do they learn if they don't have access to like camps and stuff?
Again, I think it's for me, I was just doing it at home, right? So it became a challenge. I think nowadays that um, the parents just, even if they don't have the resources for camps and everything, they'll find the resources for sports. They'll find the resources, for basketball or football. So um, you should be able to always find the resources if you really want to. You go buy them a new pair of shoes,
Mhm.
$100 pair of shoes. So, but if not, then maybe you go up to the school and then you talk to the teacher, the principal, see what the school could do for your child to help them become a better math student.
So
But again, they only could do so much, right? It still falls back at the house. You still got to be able to reinforce that when they're at home.
So how early? Because I know, the mind, the absorbent mind, is like really at a very critical, crucial young age. How early should we start? And then how do we like all the things that we talked about, how math and science is in everything that we do every day. I mean, they on their phone. Do they know how that they have a computer in the phone and the
Hmm.
calculations that go in to
Hmm.
make it work?
Hmm.
Like how early should we start? I think what we speak is so powerful. Uh-oh. I think what we speak is so powerful in
mhm.
terms of you know, just communicating that what we're doing, this is science, this is math. And when we're cooking, I
Yes.
mean, a recipe is nothing but chemistry and equations.
So you really could start them at 2 years old. You could really go back to the building blocks.
Hmm.
Malik was in readiness two. I think he was 2 years old. And it was a private school, but building blocks. You can go back to just getting the basic building blocks. I'm pretty sure that they still have them out there somewhere where you get the building blocks.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
I think to your point though, Demetria, about the power of the tongue, I think the first thing we have to do is stop saying that math is hard.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
we have to stop speaking and saying how we can't do it. You
Hmm.
know, um, we can do it. We may not know the answer right now, but we're gonna get to the answer.
Hmm.
I don't know about you, Owen. So my sister often she has also said that she doesn't really like math and that it um
Yes, I said
she
it and
doesn't
I
like
still
it
mean it
because
because it's all made up. And the only real is biology to me because, again, I can see the scientific evidence of biological things. That
well,
math,
can you
that's it.
help
Y'all
her
made
with the
all that.
biology of the mathematics of biology,
Yes,
Y'all,
but
please?
you
y'all
still
made it
have
up.
biology uses math,
It
right?
does. Biology and
Hmm.
chemistry is totally math, especially
And
organic
physics.
and physics. Yes,
Hmm.
very much so.
But
But
one of the things she has always said, it's made up or she doesn't like it. For me, what I liked about math so much is because it was an answer.
somebody decided that this equals two.
They did, but somebody also decided that words have definitions. So it does all of
Mm-hmm.
it could be made up if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody
Mhm.
decide to call this an arm. I mean, come on. You can say everything is made up at this
Mm-hmm.
point. But I think what I liked about it, she'll say like, "Oh, it's not definitive." I'm like, "It absolutely is." That's what I like about it. That there was an answer. And even though I love writing as well, with writing, it always felt very subjective. With some of the more creative aspects, it feels subjective. So if the person who's teaching you feels like you are not writing in a certain style, or you're not making the point in the way they feel like you should be making the point, they can mark up your paper. I remember in grad school, I used in a sentence, somebody was tasked with the responsibility to do XYZ, and my teacher, she flagged it. Like, this lady had given me a D on this paper, and I was like, who are we talking about? Absolutely not. And I pushed back on not only the overall grade, but that particular word, because I had to pull it up and be like, here it is used in the sentence. And then she gave me credit for it, but then was like, well, you shouldn't use like I shouldn't use semicolons because people don't know how to use them. You might not know how to use them. I'm pretty straight on the semicolons. But I just say all that to say so much can be subjective based on how you feel like writing should go. But when it came to mathematics, it's like this is either you got the answer right or wrong. And that's what I liked
Mm-hmm.
about it. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that was what was your experience? What did you like about the math and science?
Yes, like you said, it's either right or wrong. There ain't no in between. And that's just when you start looking at you get deep down into calculus and all that, the equations. You know, again, it always gonna take you in a certain direction in a certain place where the answer is either right or wrong. There is no in between. Professors, teachers might give you some partial credit because you were working it right, but you didn't get the right answer.
Right.
Mhm.
And that partial credit, listen, in
Helps.
engineering, it was wonderful.
Mhm.
I needed all the partial credit
So we had a
possible.
comment here said that there are free academic camps. I think wherever you live, you should search, find out what free academic camps are available for your children and get them involved early. One of the things that Alwyn said earlier is basics, and having the basics, you flashcards, addition, subtraction. I mean,
Mhm.
if you instill those basics before they even get to the schoolhouse, then they'll
Mhm.
have an upper leg.
Mhm.
We have biologists need math to develop medicines.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I know they do need math, and
Mhm.
actually, that's mostly what chemists are doing. The biologists is just running them experiment. Listen, I understand. I know it's the if thens, and you have all sciences is math hypothesis. We talked about if thens earlier. I get all of that. I'm just saying.
What are you just saying? Because we not getting it. The engineers in the room ain't getting it.
I'm just saying. I prefer the physical life sciences pieces more. Okay? That's just me.
And
Okay.
to get to the physical, you have to go through the math equations of it.
Do we really? Do we
Well,
really?
I think that, I'm gonna just use something simple. If I have these digits, I'm
Hmm.
supposed to have five of them. Five is the word that we gave to these. I'm supposed to have five. If one is missing, then something happened. So,
Hmm.
might want to figure out what happened. And you ain't gonna figure it out unless one is missing. And so there's your math.
I guess. Okay. All right. Whatever y'all say. Um,
If your body temperature is over a certain number,
97.8,
ha-
98.7. Right?
yeah, then it means that something is physically wrong with you. But you
yes,
need
it
to know
does.
that number to decide that.
in
Okay.
Fahrenheit and Celsius. So why do you think, and let me ask you this question. So because you work with people internationally, why do you think that our country still hasn't moved over to the metric system?
Who, me or Alwyn?
I'm asking Alwyn. I'm asking he work with
Okay.
well, you work with international people too. I'm sorry. Both of y'all work with people internationally. But I'm thinking about this space, the space station and this new project that they're working on, and people from all over the world.
Because the U.S. leads the world, right? So everybody got to
But
adapt
do
to the
we?
U.S. I think we leading the world in space for
Okay.
sure.
Okay. That's fair.
That was a nice way of saying it. I was just gonna say because we have a superiority complex.
Mm.
And so, I mean, why does everybody else learn English and we rarely learn other
Hmm.
languages? Even though it would behoove us to do so. You know, money the language of money is English.
English.
So
Yeah. So, do you ever run into challenges or problem when you're working and communicating, or how are the engineers who you work with internationally? Do they work in our system, or do they work in their system, or or how are you adept at switching back and forth?
No, 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 no. Because space is so crucial, it got to be one way, Because if you have one mistake with a, with supposed to be centimeters or millimeters or whatever it might be, if you have one mistake in that, that could be a catastrophic event. So,
Hmm.
I think everything is adapted towards how the U.S. does it.
Hmm. And so, what do we do? Do we use metric, or are we using inches? Like what y'all using, centimeters or inches?
But they use, depends on what it is. Most time it could be, inches. Depends on how small it is. It could be millimeters. It just depends on the actual work that you're doing.
Okay.
that man said, "Don't be asking him about the secrets of the space
But
program."
it's just curious to me because that's the schizophrenia of us. Also, it's like we switch back and forth from in these two systems, right?
No, no, yeah, no, you can't do that.
But we
That's
do in everyday life, and maybe that's why we confusing children because y'all talking about yards on the football field, but everywhere else we talk about miles.
but you
Miles
could
or
convert,
meters or kilometers.
you could convert though, right? So that's the conversion factor. A certain amount of what.
Why we gotta always be converting? Why can't we just do one thing? I don't know.
Well, it depends. So, if you look at a mile, right? So, feet depends on, feet is a shorter distance, right? So a mile is a longer distance. So there is a conversion, like, some people might want to use this amount of feet equals 1 mile. So it
Mhm.
just depends, inches, when you measure something that's small, you might have to use inches because the foot, might be too long.
I think the bottom line with the conversion is at the end of the day, somebody thought that they needed to have another. And I'm sure there's a whole
Yeah,
historical
reason.
background reason
Mhm.
for why they thought that it necessitated a metric system and the whatever, I don't know even know what we call English standard, I don't know, but
That's
anyway.
It's
high.
it's
Mhm.
it's got to be for the because of the British, but again, even the British adopted the metric system.
Perhaps, but I don't think that's what's holding us back. I think at the end of the day, because even that is formulaic, right? Celsius to Fahrenheit, there
Mhm.
is a formula. Just
Mhm.
it is not that we have multiple systems. It is that people don't know how to convert those things. They don't understand why they can just convert them. They don't understand that. Um and I think that we're at a place, so the topic here about the math ain't mathing is that we have to get our children, no matter what their areas of interest are, right? So you have
Mhm.
very creative children, for example. Even if you're going into the arts, just understanding where there are elements of mathematics and science, even with the arts. And I work in marketing. I have an engineering degree, but I work in marketing. And I was just saying the other day, part of the problem is that people think that marketing is just the arts, right? They think it's creative. They think it's making stuff pretty. There is an art and there is a science to it. The science is you take data
Mm-hmm.
and you make data driven decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So I use the iPhone as an example. I don't have an iPhone anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Samsung phone. I know people who will argue me now
Me.
that an iPhone is a superior product.
Mm-hmm.
And they've never even looked at the spec sheet. They have no data to support it. It's just that iPhone is better.
Okay, well, let's ask the scientists. What say you?
He's an iPhone guy, right?
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm.
See, see, but they will not they do not recognize that that was marketing. There are people who are very very smart who said, hey, this spec sheet says one thing, but let's not worry about the spec sheet. Let's make it look a certain way. Let's talk to a certain audience. Let's promote it in a way. People talk about iPhone versus Android. It's iPhone and a Samsung, or iPhone and a Google phone. It's not iPhone versus an Android. Android is the operating system.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
iOS is the operating system for
Mm-hmm.
iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
So people the language isn't even correct, but that is marketing, and that marketing comes from combining the art part, the creative side, with the science part and the math part, and actually taking numbers and being like crunching those numbers to say, and this is why you put these people in this commercial, and this is why you talk about it in this way. And people only want to see one aspect of it. They only want to
Mm-hmm.
see the creative aspect of certain things. And it's like, no, all of this, there is data, there is a lot that goes into it. And I think we have to do a better job of pulling that piece out,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
saying you can actually use your left and right brains. It doesn't have to be either or.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
let's close out on this topic about possibility versus probability, and I want to hit this at a couple of angles. So all when we talked about, they said you the hood mathematician, the hood scientist, hood engineer, whatever. Um, and so the possibilities of were there are so many possibilities that could have, the could haves, but the probability of you achieving the success that you achieved, how did you overcome all the possibilities that were out there of what you were not going to be able to do versus kind of leaning into the probabilities based on the the God-given gifts that you have? How did you use that and lean into those probabilities to do the things that you're doing today?
You have to be really focused and dedicated because there's a ton of possibilities, right? But then there's always the probability for you to be steered in the wrong direction.
Mhm.
So you have to be able to stay focused on what your goals are because anything is achievable, but it's a
Mhm.
mindset. So if you have the right mindset, then you're gonna be able to achieve it. Or you could be steered into the wrong way.
Mhm.
Yeah, at one point, I was heading that way, and then it had to be redirected. So
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And then we were talking also about people possibilities and probabilities as they're looking at their kids. So you talked about, hey, if you're investing in new sneakers but not take investing in them to go to a camp, the possibility of them being an NBA player
yeah,
versus the probability of success that if you invest in this additional education, what that could turn out to be. Why don't you just do me a favor? Why don't you just define possibility versus probability from a math standpoint?
You know, probability. You know, that's a more of a, you know, if this occurs, then what's the probability this is gonna happen?
Mhm.
You know, possibilities is that anything is possible if you study. Guess what? You know, you could achieve greatness.
Mhm.
So to me, I think that's the difference between possibility and probability. Probability is very, very small in certain cases. Like you say, an NBA player, becoming the NBA player, becoming an NFL player, even becoming a baseball player. The probability is so small. You got to have extraordinary talent to be able to do it.
Mhm.
Now, the possibility to go off to college and play a sport, yes, that's probably it is very possible because there's so many schools in a nation and so many opportunities. So you can always have that probability, but that take that possibility to leave one of those schools to go off to the and play professional, it's going to be a small few.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
So
would
how do Go
Oh, go
ahead,
ahead.
Chrissy. No,
No,
go
no, I
ahead.
was just gonna say I would even almost say probability is about math, right? You
Mhm.
can look at we graduated from Thibodeau High School. I don't know about when you graduated. I had about 360 people in my class. There are some
315.
things 315. Okay. So we can do some probabilities of, who is probably going to become a teacher, who will probably become an engineer. There are some mathematical things that you could
Hmm.
do and calculate probabilities, the more likely outcome. Possibility, on the other hand, is often just based on luck. You know,
Hmm.
um, there's one Beyonce. I watched Tyler Perry's documentary today. There's one Tyler Perry. The possibility of there being another is zero because there's only one. Now, the probability of someone else putting in so many hours,
Mhm.
training, learning, growing, developing, putting themselves in a certain, yes, if they do all those things, the probability becomes higher
Hi,
for
yes.
them to get to a certain point in life. But the possibility of them repeating the exact success of somebody else is zero.
Hmm.
It
Yes.
doesn't happen. So that's kind of how I would look at it. And so I think at the end of the day, you beat the odds.
Yes, I was thinking. I defeated all odds, because the probability of me becoming an engineer is probably small, right? But
Did you even know an
no,
engineer? Okay, because I say that too.
and,
I don't even know
and
that I knew an engineer
so
before I
let me tell
became one.
you how as you know, Steve came to Southern, right? So Steve was gonna major in electrical engineering. So I said, guess what? Shit, I'm good in math. I ain't gonna be a teacher, so I'm majoring in electrical engineering too. So that's why I majored in electrical engineering because Steve was doing
Mhm.
Yeah, well,
it.
And look at that. Look at God for real.
yes, because you all picked a really tough one. I think that everybody who majored in whatever form of engineering they majored in, they thought that was the easiest one.
Yes, because I ain't like
So
mechanical and I ain't like civil.
civil, right, and that's exactly how I felt. I did not like mechanical, and I did not like electrical. Electrical just I was like, listen, I don't know
Mhm.
nothing about these voltage, and I don't know
Mhm.
voltage first versus an amp. I don't know what that means.
Mhm.
This is not my life. But a bridge being built was felt a little bit more tangible for me.
Yes.
Ah.
So but yes,
Well,
you beat the odds, my friend.
Yes.
And I just want to say that I feel very honored to know you. And I think that, it's always great to see people who we knew back then doing really great things. And
Yes.
so when I saw you back at NASA and I saw the very professional headshot, I was
with the
like
right
that.
angle.
Hitting the right
Mhm.
angles. Yes, I thought it was awesome. And so giving you your flowers now to say thank you
Thank
for
you.
being
Appreciate it.
just an amazing example. And I hope more young men, particularly young black men from our hometown, but even wider, because you're in Houston now, I hope that they can see your example and learn from it, and know that anything is possible, but
Anything's
the
possible.
probability of them being an engineer is much higher if they invest in themselves
So,
and
yep.
harness that God-given talent. So
Yes.
Hmm.
That's great
Yeah.
words. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and so in closing for me, okay, well, look, that's Steven saying we got through it together.
Oh,
Yes,
we
okay.
did. Yes. Hey, me and Steve, we were studying, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Me and Steve was taking almost every class together.
Hmm.
No, no doubt. Yes, every class, just about.
yes,
Hey,
honey, that was imperative. You had to get that good friend that you was gonna be with,
That,
work
yeah.
it out.
well, I'll say, so for me in closing, I'll say thank you for coming on and being an example. So both of you said y'all didn't even know an engineer who looked like you growing up. You didn't even know
Yeah.
engineering was a
I didn't
possibility.
even know what
Me
engineers
either.
really
I
did.
Right.
definitely didn't.
So we didn't even know what was possible. Um, and look, one of your big sisters out there, hey Nina. So we didn't even know what was like. We didn't even you didn't even know what was possible, much less a probability, right?
Hmm.
So if you
Hmm.
so leaning into your God given gifts and talents, having those nurturing, hey, taking that trip up to Baton Rouge when
Oh
Kendrick
yes. Hmm.
said, "Hey, come on with me, and we gonna go up here and enroll." And it completely changes the trajectory of your life. And I
Oh
think
yes.
so. We talked about life is nothing but word problems. The if then. So if you hadn't taken that, then what could
Exactly.
have been, right?
Yes. Yep. 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 Yep.
And
Yep.
trajectory is also mathematics
Hmm.
related, by the way.
Yes, it
Hmm.
is. So, any words you want to say to people in closing, Alwyn?
No, I just appreciate you guys. I got a lot of love for both of you. So, thank you for having me on. And, it's up to anybody that, you have the ability to do what you want to do, right? You just got to bring it out of you. You got to birth it out of you. So it's
Hmm.
up to you. Everybody have choices. So it's the choices we make going to dictate our lives.
Hmm. And I will say in closing, if you are out there and you have a math problem that you have trouble solving,
Yep.
this good brother will
Hmm.
certainly work it out for you and help you work it out. So reach out to him. He on LinkedIn. I ain't gonna give all his details out here, but he on LinkedIn, all the social media. His name is the same, Alwynn VanBuren. You can find him. So with that, we signing off tonight. Good night, everybody.
Good
All right.
night.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.